But Higgins would soon be damming more than the obstacles. For years, he had competed with the big American shipyards. And with their long-established connections, he had found the Navy's door repeatedly slammed in his face.
He was on the telephone most of the time. I'm afraid he was very outspoken. He was very calm at home, but I think he was a lot different when he was fighting for something he believed in.
At his own expense, he arranged for competitive trials to showcase his boat. The Navy was bowled over, but they demanded one major modification. On an exposed beach with machine guns poised to mow them down, the troops and vehicles would have to be out of the landing craft fast. Scrambling over the sides of Higgins' boats would be a death sentence. His boats, the Navy insisted, needed watertight ramps.
Higgins told his guys, he said, look, the Navy's going to be in 72 hours. No one's leaving this office until this ramp is designed. In the middle of the discussion, a young engineer mentioned that he had a cigar box that he had worked on. It was a little contraption, but he said the ramp kind of worked. And Higgins said, all right, now fix it. No one's leaving until the ramp's designed. By that afternoon, the ramp was completed.
Not only could troops storm the beach, but they could land quicker, exposed for a shorter time to enemy fire. And with them, they could land their vehicles for a fast mechanized assault against the enemy's positions.
Watching the trials for the landing craft on Lake Pontchartrain, just outside New Orleans, was a young man whose survival would depend on the Higgins boat.
I had to go past the lakefront just to go home from school. And of course, the Higgins boats were going up to the seawall, and they would debark from the boats and storm the beach. And as a kid standing there, probably 16, 17 years of age, I had decided then and there, I don't want any part of that. That looked like a rather dangerous assignment. And with my dumb luck, that's what I wound up getting involved with.
Marvin Perrette was one of over 1,000 coxswains trained to steer a Higgins boat in on D-Day. He can still see why it was perfect for the job.
It is 36 feet in length, 10 feet wide, powered by a 671 Gray Marine diesel engine, and I haven't lost my touch.
But the right design was not enough. The Allies had a much bigger headache. How to churn out almost 9,000 boats in under 2 years with steel in short supply. Higgins was about to pull another rabbit out of the hat. In an act of extraordinary foresight, he had bought the entire 1939 crop of mahogany from the Philippines. Making his boats from wood, Higgins Industries was about to become a powerhouse of mass production.
He built boats the way that Henry Ford built automobiles, so that you had a production line going. You had a worker that was putting on a ramp. You had a worker that was putting on a propeller. You had it hitting the paint booth where people are spraying it. You had it coming out the other end. It's loading onto rail cars, and then it's taken away. So it was mass production, unlike any other boatyard in the nation at its time.
Building that many boats could never be kept totally under wraps. Word spread back to Germany. This family man was well known even to Adolf Hitler. It was said he called him the new Noah. Higgins' family now feared for his life.
We had a guard outside of our home here in New Orleans, and he'd come at dark, right before dark, and he would stay till early morning. We always had that guard out there.
Fully aware the Allies were planning a massed seaborne invasion, the Germans struck back. Field Marshal Rommel, a brilliant military tactician, was convinced he could smash an invasion at the outset by pinning the Allies down on the beaches under a hail of gunfire. he strengthened the Atlantic Wall, a line of fortifications that ran from Norway to the Spanish border, with its strongest point the stretch of coast closest to England, from Calais to Normandy.
I came here to Normandy in October 1943. I was still very young. I was 17 years old. I had my 18th birthday here. It was really interesting for me. I'd never seen the sea before.
But the 18 months Franz Gockel spent at the seaside were no holiday. He was one of the 500,000 men pulled in to build the Atlantic Wall. He helped construct one of the thousands of bunkers designed to lock the invaders in on the beach.
This patch of land was called Resistance Post 62. In this ditch down here was my machine gun position. The machine gun was shielded by a couple of wooden planks covered in earth. From here I could see a wide stretch of the beach.
To knock out a German gun battery, the Allies would need heavy armor. If D-Day was to stand even the slightest chance of success, they would now need tanks on the beaches alongside the infantry in the crucial opening moments of the invasion. But the Allies had tried to land tanks on an enemy beach before. In 1942, they attempted a test run for D-Day on the small French port of Dieppe. The operation was a complete disaster. The huge landing craft that brought the tanks to the shore were sitting ducks for the German gun batteries. Few tanks made it up the beach, and without their support, over 1,000 Allied infantry were slaughtered in a few hours. With less than 2 years to go to D-Day, the Allies set about designing a tank that would not need a boat to bring it to shore in the first wave of the invasion, but could swim in under its own steam. But how do you get over 30 tons of metal to float? Nicholas Straussler had good reason to take on the Nazis. He was a Hungarian Jew. The archetypal boffin, he had been chasing the dream invention that would make him his fortune. But as an outsider, he had trouble selling his rather eccentric designs to the closed club of the British military. But he was determined to crack the problem of how to get a tank to float into shore. One of his early experiments was to attach flotation pods to an armored vehicle. It floated, but the pods would make a tank too cumbersome. Straussler wasn't about to give up. He turned to the ancient Greeks and put his faith in Archimedes' principle. Any heavy object can be made to float so long as it displaces enough water, just like a ship made from steel. If he could attach a sturdy screen all the way around the top of the tank that was high enough, he would create a makeshift hull that would do just the trick. Add a propeller, and it would be a tank on land and a boat at sea. He called it the duplex drive, or DD tank. Back in 1943, the DD tank's design was an official war secret.
Would you give me about 30 to 40 pounds?
But today,